I now welcome Ms. Carol Coy.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let me, on behalf of the board, management, and staff of the Statistical Institute of Jamaica, wish for you a happy new year. Thank you for joining our first quarterly press briefing for 2022. Today, we will highlight the key indicators from the third quarter gross domestic product, the September International Merchandise Trade Statistics, and today we will be releasing the December 2021 Consumer Price Index and the October 21 Labor Force Survey. Going to the gross domestic product, the third quarter for 2021. During the third quarter of 2021, that is July to September, the Jamaican economy continued to show signs of recovery from the negative impacts of COVID-19 in 2020. Total value added grew by 5.8% relative to the comparable quarter of 2020. Increases were recorded for both the services and goods producing industries of 7.1% and 2.4% respectively. This improvement is also evident in the 0.6% increase in total value added when we do a comparison with the previous quarter, that is April to June 2021. While there was some relaxation of some COVID measures, including the reopening of the entertainment sector in July and the easing of international travel restrictions, growth was tempered by global and local supply chain disruptions, the impact of tropical storms Grace and Ida, and measures such as the no movement days implemented in August and September 2021 to combat the surge in the spread of COVID-19. We'll now look at the performance of the services industries. The hotels and restaurants industry increased by 114.6%. This industry benefited from the reduction in global travel restrictions, which contributed to the 318.1% increase in foreign national arrivals to the island. Increases were also recorded for transport, storage, and communication industry, which went up by 8.8%. The other services, which went up by 12.2%. Wholesale and retail trade, repairs, installation of machinery and equipment, which increased by 4.4%. Finance and insurance services grew by 2.3%. Real estate, renting, and business activities increased by 0.7%. Electricity and water, 0.6%. And the producers of government services, which went up by 0.4%. The value added for the goods producing industries grew by 2.4% due to increases in agriculture, forestry, and fishing of 7.3%, manufacturing 4.6%, and construction by 4.4%. However, the mining and quarrying industry declined by 29.7%, due mainly to lower output levels in alumina and crude bauxite. The reduction in the output of alumina was mainly due to the major fire which occurred at the Jamaica Aluminium Company Jamalco plant in August 2021. Turning to international merchandise trade for the period January to September 2021. Jamaica's total spending on imports and its earnings from exports increased by 23.3% and 26.3% respectively for the review period. Total imports were valued at $4.2 billion in 2021 compared to $3.4 billion in 2020. This increase was largely attributed, the increase in total imports was largely attributable to higher imports of consumer goods, which went up by 9.5%, raw materials or intermediate goods, which increased by 22.2%, and fuel and lubricants, which increased by 62.2%. It should be noted that spending on imports has not yet returned to pre-pandemic levels. In the corresponding 2019 period, imports were valued at approximately $4.9 billion. Total export earnings in 2021 were valued at $1.1 billion, an increase of 26.3% relative to the same period in 2020. The increase in exports was driven mainly by mineral fuels, which rose by 96.8%. Earnings from domestic exports increased by 18.4% to $1 billion and accounted for 89.6% of total exports. Exports from the manufacturing industry increased by 32.1%, due mainly to higher exports of refined petroleum products and food, beverages, and tobacco. Earnings from the mining and quarrying industry was 6.2% above that in the comparable 2020 period, due to higher exports of alumina. Exports from the agriculture industry increased by 7.5%, due mainly to increased exports of yam and coffee. We will now turn to the Consumer Price Index, or the CPI. And the CPI, again, it's a reinforcement, measures changes in the general level of prices of consumer goods and services purchased by private households. The inflation rate for December 2021 was 0.8%. This was due mainly to the 4.7% increase in the index for the division housing, water, electricity, gas, and other fuels. The upward movement in the index for this division was mainly due to electricity, water, and sewage rates. The inflation rate for December was, however, tempered by the 0.5% decrease in the index for the heaviest weighted division, food and non-alcoholic beverages. For the second consecutive month, the index for the group food declined, moving down by 0.6% in December. This was primarily attributed to the 5.6% fall in the class vegetables, tubers, plantains, cooking bananas, and pulses. Surplus in some agricultural produce resulted in lower prices for items such as tomato, lettuce, cabbage, and yam. The point-to-point inflation, and here we're looking at December 2020 to December 2021, was 7.3%. This was influenced by the increase in the point-to-point inflation rate for the division's housing, water, gas, and other fuels, which went up by 11.7%, food and non-alcoholic beverages, which increased by 4.9%, and transport, which went up by 13.9%. The main contributor to the rise in the index of the division housing, water, electricity, gas, and fuels was a 23.7% increase in the index for the class electricity, gas, and other fuels, and this was due to higher rates for electricity over the period. Impacting the index for the division food and non-alcoholic beverages were the classes cereal and cereal products and meat and other parts of slaughtered animals, which increased by 13% and 13.8% respectively. These increases largely resulted from higher grain prices on the international market, as well as the impact of increased shipping costs. However, moderating these movements were the class vegetables, tubers, plantains, cooking bananas, and pulses, which declined by 11%, mainly due to increased supplies of agricultural produce, which led to lower prices. The transport division was mainly impacted by higher costs for passenger transport services, which moved up by 12.7%, and this was influenced by the 15% increase in the route taxi and hackney carriage fares granted in August, as well as the operation of personal transport equipment, which rose by 19.8% due to increased cost for fuel. We will now turn to the October 2021 labor force survey. Statin conducts a quarterly labor force survey designed to produce official national statistics on the labor market, including the number of persons employed, unemployed, and outside of the labor force. Today's release highlights the findings of the October 2021 labor force survey. In October 2021, there were 1,234,800 persons employed in Jamaica. This was an increase of 6.6% or 76,600 persons when compared to October 2020. These persons were engaged in economic activities for at least 1 hour during the September 19 to 25 reference week. Females recorded the larger increase in employment. The number of employed females grew by 8.5% to 568,600, while for employed males the increase was 5.1% to 676,200. There were increases across all age groups. Looking at the employed labor force by industry group, most industries showed an increase in employment in October 2021. The largest increase in employment of 23.1% was in real estate and other business services, moving to 130,500 persons. This was followed by arts, entertainment, recreation, and other services, which increased by 15.3% to 111,500 persons, and construction, which went up by 13.2% to 113,900 persons. Overall, these three industries accounted for 68.7% of the increase in employment. Looking at the employment by occupation group, the group professionals, senior officials, and technicians accounted for the largest increase in employment of 25,800 persons, with females accounting for the majority of the increase, 13,500. Employment also increased in the group elementary occupations by 14,500 and service workers and shop and market sales workers by 14,400 persons. Females accounted for all the increase in the group service workers and shop and market sales workers. Turning now to unemployment. The unemployment rate for October 2021 was 7.1%, and this is a decline of 3.7 percentage points relative to October 2020. The unemployment rate for males was 5.5% and 9% for females. There were 32.4% less unemployed persons when compared to October 2020. The number of unemployed males and females declined by 36.2% and 29.4% respectively. Youth unemployment. The youth unemployment rate declined by 9.3 percentage points to 18.9% relative to October 2020. There was a larger decline in female youth unemployment. The unemployment rate for females was 21.6%, down 12.3 percentage points. Male youth unemployment was 16.6%, a decline of 7.2 percentage points. The number of unemployed youth fell by 17,600 to 37,400. Looking at the outside of the labor force, there were 766,500 persons 14 years and older who were neither employed nor unemployed. compared to the corresponding period in 2020. Male outside the labor force declined by 9,500, while females declined by 19,500. In October 2021, there were 1.3 million persons in the labor force, an increase of 31,400 compared to 1,297,700 in October 2020. The male labor force increased by 10,700 persons, while the female labor force increased by 20,700 persons. To put some of these numbers in context in light of the pandemic, I'll summarize them relative to the pre-COVID survey findings of October 2019. The number of persons employed in Jamaica in October 2021 was 16,700 fewer than in October 2019. By age group, when we look at age group, there were more persons in the youth and population, and in the retirement age who were participating in the employed labor force in October 2021. 3 industry groups, the real estate and other business services, construction, and agriculture, forestry, and fishing, were the only groups to have surpassed their pre-COVID, which is in October 2019, employment levels. There were 35,400 more persons working in real estate and other business services, 9,300 more persons in construction, and 4,800 persons more in agriculture, forestry, and fishing relative to October 2019. Employment in arts, entertainment, recreation, and other services, and in the accommodation and food services activities industries was, however, lower than their pre-COVID levels by 15.8% and 10.6% respectively. The number of persons unemployed and the unemployment rate was, however, comparable to that reported in October 2019. The number of unemployed persons in October 2019 was 96,500, and the unemployment rate was 7.2%. Additionally, the number of unemployed youth and the youth unemployment rate mentioned prior were lower than the pre-pandemic levels of 43,300 and 21% respectively. In closing, I take this opportunity to acknowledge the work of the management and staff of the Institute. Statin thanks the respondents who continue to take time out of their busy schedules to participate in our household and business surveys. We reiterate the need for continuous participation in our surveys. We also thank the respective ministries, departments, and agencies for making administrative records available for the compilation of the statistics. We encourage everyone to visit our website at statinja.gov.jm for all tables associated with today's releases. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Coy. We will now open for questions. You can use the raised icon feature if you have a question, and when you are identified, you can also identify the organization that you are representing. Are there any questions? Any questions from our stakeholders? All right, if there are no questions, we take this opportunity. Oh, hi, Javon.
Hi, good morning. So sorry I joined late, so I'm not sure if it was said earlier, but I'm still gonna ask, could you remind us of the total expenditure for the census for this year, and what's the progress of getting things in place for that? How's that been going?
Thank you, Javon. And that question is for our Director General, Ms. Carol Coy.
Devon, as you would have known from the budget, I think approximately $1 billion was approved for the expenditure on the census. Because of supply chain issues, because of COVID, that has impacted the census. So the expenditures have not been as how we would have expected them, because it's going to impact data collection for the census. So you will hear further from Statin regarding the process for undertaking the census during 2022.
Thanks, Ms. Coy. Are there any other questions? Okay, if not, thank you once more for joining today's quarterly press briefing. As our Director General said, please visit our website for all the tables and bulletins that were released today. Thank you, and do have a wonderful day.